Welcome to part 6. Now this is what most people are going to really be interested in here in the Knights Templar Chaplain program is the King James Bible of 1611. The date is a difficult one to talk about though, because that's when the first edition was authorized and signed. Now remember, with the death of Queen Elizabeth, James VI of Scotland became the king, and he became also King of England as James I. One of the first things that happened was the reestablishment of the Church of England and removal of England from the Catholic communion. So our sisters and brothers in the Roman Catholic Church sometimes take umbrage with the statement Roman Catholic Church, because it is the Catholic Church that just happens to be in Rome. That's a point of contention for many of them that was really exacerbated during this. I do want to have you take a look at this on the right, and it's difficult for some of you to read. To the most high and mighty Prince James, by the grace of God, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith, etc., the translators of the Bible, with grace, mercy, and peace through Jesus Christ our Lord. A couple things to remind you of is that James was still king of France as well as Ireland. Ireland was not yet divided. That happened much later. And if you also notice, James and Jesus, as we've talked about in previous lectures, we did not yet use the J for them all the time. So it was still I. And this was a real recent thing for us that we started using the J, and that was because of German scholarship. Here, we start to consider that James, mostly as a political move, resolved to have this new translation made using the Greek and the Hebrew manuscripts, printed without the study notes, which was contentious because so often people who wanted to change the polity instead of the theology of the church, they were using the study notes in others, like in the Geneva Bible, to try and make their points. And sometimes there were issues of biblical scholarship that were not biblical, they were political. So he said, nope, nothing like that is going in it. But I wanted this picture here to see what we call marginalia. So if you notice on the margins all the way to the left and to the right, there are particular notes that help explain things or clarify issues or give cross-references. So quite often with Jesus' work, he quotes the Old Testament a lot, and he is actually quoting from the LXX, the Septuagint, and that is where a lot of this came in. To just the marginalia, you have to make the decisions yourself. And when we use the term authorized, by the way, the King James Bible is called the Authorized Version because it was conceived of at the Hampton Court Conference of 1604, where he authorized the conference to do the translations. So we have this 1611 right here, newly translated out of the original tongues and with the former translations diligently compared and reused by His Majesty's special commandment. This is what that first page looked like from the 1611. If you're familiar with A3 or folio size, the 11 by 17, that's close to the size of this. I wanted to put in here a comparison of the Geneva. If you notice, this is Romans 8:28, and left is Geneva, so it's far more notes than Bible. And on the right is Romans 28 from the King James with just the little marginalia, where there could be a word that some of the original manuscripts challenged or had different, so it was put in there. But it is left to the reader to learn and pray about. There is also, I have mentioned the infallibility, the importance of that. Sometimes on the different presses, there were typographical errors. So in this case, there was one letter accidentally put in to Ruth 3:15. So the pronoun she instead of he. It was talking about Ruth and Boaz, but the he went into the city is Boaz. But in this one episode, remember, letters were not standardized the way we know them today. So there is an S right there. He went into the city, but it's printed as she. This doesn't make that much of a difference, but it does point to how essential it was that every letter be exactly right. As Jesus said, every jot and tittle should not be changed of the law. 1612, the quarto version was published. 1616, Parliament declared the Geneva Bible illegal because they found it to be a vote of confidence against the crown and a vote of confidence against. The Geneva Bible was so important to us because it helped broaden out the reasons for English, but the Geneva Bible also was undermining the established church, which was so important. Remember, you did not yet have religious freedom. You worshipped the way the king told you to worship, or if you were of another faith, you paid the taxes. So Jewish and Muslim people in England at that time paid taxes to the crown for the privilege of worshiping as they wanted. It was interesting to note, 1645, long after the Presbyterian movement committed regicide and killed the king because they wanted the power, and it took a while for the monarchy to be reestablished. 1645, the King James Bible was reproduced with some Geneva-like notes, and the importance of 1645 is that was the year that freedom of the press was established in England. That leads our story towards this constant reiteration that it's not just about theology, it's about politics as well for a lot of these things. They are so essential that we recognize here in the history of the Bible in English.